What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Stories Beyond the Field. I'm Gabe Kalama,
I'm Hayden Kalama.
and today we are joined by
Bern Brostek.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Appreciate you being on, Shane. It's good to have you on here, bro.
Thank you
Hayden,
for
why
having
don't you, of course, anytime. Why don't you
Yeah, of course.
quickly run
Give a
through
little
some of his accolades?
backstory. This is our guy, big time friend of the family. Call him our cousin. But he attended Hawaii Preparatory Academy, which is a school both me and Gabe went to. He graduated in 2012. He was a first team All Big Island and first team All State lineman as a senior on both discus and shot at Hawaii State Tournament Championship in 2011 as a junior. He was a Gatorade player of the year for track. He attended UW from 2012 to 2016 and won the Iron Husky Award in 2016 on his senior year. So it's great to have you, man. It's awesome to get you here.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me again, man. I appreciate it. So let's get into it.
Start off real simple. Just kind of take us through what made you want to play football.
That's a good question to start with, bro. So, it was in the cards for me, kind of fate as you might have it. Pops played for a long time, right? Had a lot of like older brother figures that played. Daniel, of course, going to Washington too, right? So I really didn't have a choice, bro. It was going to be football, regardless for me. So, Pops was also always like teaching me and coaching me from a young age. So I was kind of blessed to have that skill set and knowledge that a lot of people didn't have access to at my age.
When did you start from like baby days, or did you start from high school? Like, what was the level that you started with?
Probably like at 12 years old, he had already kind of been pushing me into the weight room and start working on like some technique stuff. So I would say a lot earlier than most, but it's really just kind of like the knowledge that he had for the game that was a little different and what it took to get there, like preparation wise. So
How did your body feel like kind of starting off lifting weights that young? Like, was it kind of hard to get used to it, or?
For sure. I think that's something I thought about quite a bit, because there's a couple of schools of thought about like starting weight training a little bit too young. I will say I do think it gave me an advantage that a lot of people didn't have pretty early on. And it's hard to say if that was like from the best or not, but either way, I think it definitely gave me a leg up on a lot of people in high school, at least, for sure.
For sure. I mean, you are already big and strong. You got them genes from your dad, for sure. So, like,
Facts.
adding on all that strength already at a young age is going to give you a big advantage. So, transitioning from, Pop Warner style to kind of high school, how was that for you?
It wasn't too bad. Honestly, I didn't get to play Pop Warner for very long, bro. The weight limits were always an issue for me. I think the first year I played, I had to lose like 20 pounds just to make it for like the Pee Wee division for football, So if anything, it kind of held me back. Like I was always weak, right? Trying to run laps before the weigh-ins and drop as many pounds as I could like the day before. So it was kind of tough. High school though was totally different, right? You can be whatever you want, weigh whatever you want. So that's when like size and putting that time in the weight room actually like became a real advantage. So
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking about high school, throughout your 4 years at HBA, you always had your dad as a coach. So what was some of the pressures of him always being there and kind of making you do your hardest?
yeah, I would say probably he just expected me to kind of be an example, right? So there was a lot more pressure, one, to perform, but two, to also kind of like act right, I guess, right? To kind of do the right stuff outside of just practice itself. He didn't like a lot of flashy stuff or like showboating, so he kind of expected, I think, me to set the tone of like, we're just here to work. Show up every day and work. Don't be slap-assing or goofing around or, dozing off. Like, lock in for every rep. When coach is talking, lock in, kind of get everybody else on the same page. But I was lucky when I was there, we also had some older guys who were already kind of on that same wavelength. So it wasn't like a crazy transition of pressure. I would say maybe more so my senior year, but it was always a pressure that I wanted to have.
Being in high school and like having such high expectations for you to be kind of like that leader and kind of like help set the tone and keep things, a little bit more humble. How did that make you feel?
I do think that was something I kind of struggled with because part of me, right, wanted to, make a play and then, emote a little bit or show off a little bit. But I was also so tired back then, every game that I didn't have the energy for that kind of stuff. So it kind of didn't really matter or affect me much. I do think, getting everybody else on the same page was more kind of like the issue, making sure we were all kind of dialed in. But we had another great group of guys, so it wasn't a problem or anything like that.
Did you ever find that the coaching wouldn't stop once practice was done? Was coaching always kind of in you and your father's life? Like, was there ever a chance for it to be like coaching on the field and then when at home he was more of your dad, or was it always kind of you being taught a lesson?
You know what, bro? That's another really insightful one. So I would say our relationship was more coach, and student, coach at home, even. But part of that was because we also put in a lot of work, like at home, right? Because we had the gym at home, we had, space and equipment to do that kind of stuff. So it was kind of hard to compartmentalize because we were physically always like right in the gym, like literally. But that's not something that I would like take away from him or say he didn't do a good job of, because he was a completely amazing dad. It was just he himself had a hard time turning off football, right? Like that switch for him was on all the time. And that's because he lived it for 20 plus years, right? That's all he knew. And then going from playing right into coaching at HPA for like 14 years, that was just every day for him, right? So
Yeah, kinda always like that eat, sleep, shit football mentality, like, did that ever make it hard for you to continue to play the sport of football, or
yeah, you
was
like
it like
burnout. I will
yeah,
say
yeah, yeah.
I never felt like I was burnt out by it because I really did love football. That was always my first love. But sometimes you get in the middle of the grind, especially with him, because most people get an off season, right? They go play a different sport, they go do something else. But for us, like as soon as football ended, it was like right back to weight training. That was basically getting ready for next year. Even when I was doing track, there was always like some component of track practice that would like correlate directly to football anyways. So every season, every sport was 24/7 football. But again, I loved it, so I didn't really mind. I do think maybe having the chance to play a different like sport where he wasn't my coach might have been it would have been a little beneficial just to have like some independence from him, kind of learn and make my own mistakes. But I don't regret any of the time I spent with him and preparing for football. So.
No, that's good. I mean, there's definitely some pros and cons to having a family member as a coach, like, especially your dad. Like, I found that for me, it was my guiding light to kinda like, you know, help pick me up when things weren't going my way or if people
Yeah,
weren't, like, believing in me. But obviously, we also know that you did track for a bit, so what was kinda your inspiration for doing track? Like, was it just a way to get strong for football, or was there some more passion behind that too?
I did like track. I did like it. I would say it was mostly, again, just kind of beneficial for football. Kind of the same like explosive, quick movements and moving some heavyweight. But I did love it. I can't say, I hated it or anything like that. But I do think at some point I kind of just my heart wasn't quite in it the way it should have been, because my mind was always like on to the next season, on to the next football season. Track was great, but especially for throwers, you throw like one or two times a day and then you're done. So it's not like this crazy buildup. We're not going to go play a game for an hour, right? It's like you literally get like 3 minutes in the ring total time and then you're done. It's a different vibe. There's not as much of like a adrenaline rush or like not as much to get excited about, I guess.
So back to like the pressure kind of thinking away. Did you ever feel that he put a lot of pressure for you to live out his NFL dreams? Obviously, he played in the NFL. Did you ever feel like he wanted you to be more than him and to have like those crazy seasons, crazy accolades, to be on Super Bowl winning teams or even some of the best teams?
Definitely, I definitely do. I think it did come from like a place of this is a hard, I don't know how to put this exactly, but like he was a competitive person himself, right? So like, yes, he always wanted me to like succeed and achieve the same kind of stuff. But at the same time, we still always had our own little like competition going, like who could kind of garner more accolades or who could accomplish more in like a shorter period of time. And then, obviously he made it. I didn't. So he always has that one to kind of hold over me. I don't think he ever put a pressure on me that I didn't kind of already put on myself. And I think that comes from just kind of wanting to be competitive with him, you know? There's a drive I think that every kid has to kind of like try and surpass their dad, right? That just came naturally. But we are like still to this day pretty competitive with each other, so.
Now you talk about those NFL aspirations and, like, obviously 1 out of every, like, I don't know, 200 players will actually make it to the NFL. So, I'm assuming not being able to get there was probably pretty tough. So, how did you cope with that feeling?
Ooh. It's a tough one, man. For like a couple years after I was done playing, I still thought, maybe there's a chance a team pick me up practice squad or something like that, right? So for a couple years, I still tried to stay like in shape and keep my weight up, stay in the weight room, stuff like that. But eventually reality sets in. One thing that did help me a lot, though, I kind of found you still got to stay active and like competitive in something and move around in something. So I really got into like jujitsu and MMA stuff. Not that I was like trying to pursue that professionally or anything like that, but it was just a really good outlet for like a lot of energy I still had and kind of give you like something to focus on physically to like learn a new skill and kind of redirect a lot of that energy into something positive, instead of like just dwelling on bad thoughts or like thinking of how I could have changed the past. So I think finding something else outside of football. Because here's the thing: you're only going to play football for so long, right? Even if you make it to the league, guys, that have like a 8 to 10 year career are rare, and that's an incredible amount of time to be playing professionally. But it's such a small time in comparison to like the total of your life, right? You're going to be here for like 60, 70, 80 plus and 10 years isn't a whole lot of it, it's a good chunk, but you got to find something else after that to pursue as well. So, and I think a lot of guys kind of do, and still, if you still love football, like, coaching is a great way to do it, right? You kind of continue that and pass it on. Some guys can't stand to be around it though. It kind of gives them almost like PTSD, right? So they go the other way, maybe get into like some sort of business field real heavy and like try to excel at that. But I think either way, having played at that level, almost anybody who comes out of it, out of a program like that, they usually wind up like being pretty successful because they have like a drive in them, to like compete in a sense.
Speaking about your past, I know you had to deal with some injuries at some point, and how does it affect you today? Does it ever make you kind of like regret the amount of stress you put on your body because you wake up early, like having to go to work, and you're just like, I'm not
And
feeling it
stuff.
today. Yeah, my body just can't take it anymore.
Nah, sometimes I feel like that. Sometimes there's, just aches and pains, but I don't think I'll ever regret it because, the stuff that we got to do and playing under those lights was special. So I try to remember that every time my back's acting up a little bit. One of my coaches had a good saying. He always used to say, especially on special teams, right? Because you're just flying down trying to make a play. And a lot of times that's where you end up taking a good whack or a big hit. But you gotta sacrifice your body to glorify your soul. In the moment, it's gonna hurt, but you make that big play. You pop a ball out or you score a TD. You're gonna be remembered forever. So it's worth it. I think some people struggle with after the fact you are gonna be beat up, but then that comes down to like taking care of yourself. That's your own responsibility. You gotta go get treatment or go see the doctor, go work on it. Don't just be stagnant and let the injuries kind of hold you back.
Now, moving a little bit away from high school, I want to ask you about college because you did attend the University of Washington, which is where your dad and Daniel both attended. Was that like a school that you yourself really wanted to go to, or did you feel like you wanted to kind of continue on the legacy that your dad and Daniel had built at that school already?
Definitely both. I grew up watching the Huskies play all the time. So there was like a natural affinity for and then yeah, seeing Daniel play and going to a couple of his games definitely made it like a goal for me, right? To kind of follow in his footsteps. And my pops too. I will say if I had been offered by like a dream school like USC, I probably would have went there. But, you know, I'm super happy I went to UW. I made some crazy memories and good friends, and still think it is the greatest setting in college football. So
Did you ever feel overshadowed by your dad when you attended UW?
yeah, there were still a lot of like old OGs, older coaches hanging around the program who like remembered him pretty well. Right, it's pretty common. I have somebody walk up and be like, "Oh, you Burns kid, you right?" And I'm like, yeah, this and that. Never in like a bad way. It was just I always felt like I was trying to kind of get out from under that shadow and try to make my own name, but I didn't mind. That's just like another pressure to like make something happen. So it was good. It was definitely would have been different, I think, if I had gone somewhere else, right? Because he was pretty well known in that community itself, but like outside of the program, I don't think I would have had that problem. Not that it was a problem, but just that aspect.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like having those big shoes to fill, right? Because Hayden and I both playing like football on the Big Island, we always heard like, "Oh, you're Lincoln's kid." Like when I played your dad, he was running my ass over all the time, and we just have like those huge shoes to fill. Like Is it kind of safe to say that you felt the same way at UW?
Yeah, 100%. You know what's funny though? I actually felt more of that pressure to do well or like be a good player because of Daniel, because he was there just like a few years before me, right? A lot of the coaching staff had coached him as well. Actually, like Sarkeesian and that staff was his last coaching staff at UW, right? So they recruited me, and when I got there, their head strength coach, this dude Ivan, I love him. He'd always be getting in my face, and he was like, "Are you gonna be the next Daniel? You know, like come on, let's see it." Like trying to get me to kind of be the guy who's gonna like work the hardest or like show up every day consistently, right, and do everything right. And if anything, I think that was kind of more of like a kicking ass for me. Like, okay, I got to get my stuff going because I knew, Ivan might go back and tell Daniel like, oh, this guy's he's not showing up or he's not performing like you said he was gonna. You're talking all this hype about this kid and he's not doing it. So every time, summer workouts. Every morning I'm thinking like, all right, I got to kind of show out here because there's another dude I know that'll be giving me a call here pretty soon.
Hey, that's what's up. I guess another question, because Daniel was at UW a little bit before you, was he ever there to kind of be your mentor and kind of help you through when things got hard and somebody you yourself felt you could rely on?
So I was really fortunate in that sense. In the off season, he'd come back and stay in Seattle for a little bit. So I got to hang out with him like every day. Not he was like the best influence on me. And would be like, as soon as I'm done with class, he'd be waiting outside in his car. He'd be like, "Come on, let's go. We're gonna go get an extra workout in, or we're gonna go eat or do something." So, and he also made it feel like home for sure, because you get pretty homesick pretty quick, like especially your freshman year. Um, especially guys like us coming from Hawaii, going to some place where it's rainy and cold all the time, right? So I was lucky I got to spend some real time with him and like learn from him what it took to put in like extra work, stuff to do outside of practice. Because everybody thinks practice is hard and weight training's hard and it sucks, but there's so much more you could do every day, right? Like whether it's treatment or stretching, getting flexible, working on like little technique things. So it was really good to have him and to learn from.
Yeah, like obviously being an incoming freshman is really hard, especially like you said, right? Coming from Hawaii, like we're not used to the weather from up here, and we're definitely not used to like the bigger cities like Seattle and whatnot. So, how important was it for you to have someone like Daniel kind of show you the ropes early on and kind of make things a little bit more comfortable for you as you got set up at UW?
Yeah, no, it was huge. It was huge. Like when I first moved into the dorms my freshman year in the summer, he was there, like helping me out. When he would come back in off season, he'd have a place in downtown, and like open door policy, just come and crash whenever you wanted type of stuff. So he really did make it feel like home, and he always was like an older brother to me, right? So it was kind of a seamless transition, and it felt nice to have like family up there.
That's awesome. And Daniel was also such a huge influence on our lives, and he always made us feel so welcomed and taken care of, especially because, he was right after, and his NFL stint, he came over here and he coached Gabe up and helped him become, more confident in himself through high school. So, do you have any final questions, Gabe, so we can wrap it up so, his phone doesn't die?
I guess before we get to the typical question we ask on this show, like with Hayden going to college soon, what kind of advice would you give him to kind of prepare himself mentally before he takes the next stage of his football career?
Honestly, I would say kind of throw out any preconceived notions you have about like what it's going to be like. Like just show up knowing like you're going to have to work your ass off, but don't get down on yourself if you're like, "Oh, this is way harder than I thought." Or "I don't know if I could do this." Like just drop those thoughts, cuz self-doubt is like the biggest dream killer, man. And don't let it linger. Don't entertain any of those kind of thoughts. The other thing is like I think you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Even if something feels like you're struggling to like grasp it or like the practice just not going your way, the ball's not coming out the way you want it, you're not seeing things develop quite as fast as you want to or as the guys next to you, like don't compare yourself to them and just like know it's okay to feel like that. Like it's a good thing. If practice was like super easy and you were just breezing through everything, you're not being tested enough. So like be okay with being down and out and just trying to find a way to like fight through that and get back to like being on top.
I really appreciate those words. I'll try to remember them as I transition up to college.
Hell yeah.
Hit
So
him with
this
the
is
music
our
question.
final question. This is the question we ask everybody here. During a workout or during back in the day, your high school era, college era, what was a song that really fired you up, that got you in the mood for anything?
Shoot, we had a Palmdale by Afro Man was like our team anthem the year we won Biffs and then went to state and won a playoff games. That'll always kind of stick in my head from that era, at least, you know. And then I think, college, probably Fetty Wap,
Yeah,
right? 2016, bro. You got to bring it back. 2016.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the anthems.
that's awesome.
that
Good song
works.
choices too. I like them.
Yeah, and going back to the advice you gave him real quick, like I would kind of wish that was something that somebody told me before I went up to college because I struggled very early on, just kind of keeping belief in myself because I felt like the coaches definitely lost belief in me really quickly. So if I had someone like to kind of, pick me up a little bit, I think I definitely would still be playing to this day. But
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, like I definitely appreciate you passing that on to him because it's gonna be tough, but he can definitely do it.
Yeah, facts, bro, facts. Nah, honestly, even when times are tough and it feels like all the coaches might not be on your side or this or that, like just circle the wagons, buck up, don't get in your own head and think like, oh, maybe this isn't for me. Like, just throw that out. That's not ever gonna be a possibility, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It was great to have you on, Shane. I appreciate you coming on for a couple minutes and just answering some of our deeper questions. And yeah, it's good to talk to you again, man.
Heck yeah, boys. Thank you for having me. Nah, this was a good one, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of
Always,
course.
bro. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Take us out, Hayden.
All right, man. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk to us a little bit about how your experiences through sports went. So stay tuned for the next couple of episodes. We'll get those out soon, and stay tuned for more. We'll catch you guys in
Heck
the
yeah.
next one.
Cheers,
Peace.
guys. Have a
So,
good one.
you too.